Hey friends, welcome to Finlyn Media. Most of us should have seen posts circulating in social medias regarding "Pray for Palestine." Would have heard about conflicts between Israel and Palestine. And so many other news about conflicts between Muslims and Jewish on Aqsa Mosque. Today in this video I will be explaining you in detail about what is the current conflict between these two countries, how it all started in 1948, and why is the Aqsa Mosque the focal point of this whole conflict in 2021, especially during a global pandemic where thousands of people die daily. Before we look further, if you are watching my video for the first time, please do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell button for notifications. Let's continue on to the video. The long-running dispute over land in Sheikh Jarrah is considered a microcosm of the Israeli and Palestinian disputes over land since 1948. Israel's laws allow Jews to file claims over land in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, which they may have owned prior to 1948, but reject Palestinian claims over land in Israel which they owned. According to Ottoman Empire's documents presented by the settler organizations, the land in Sheikh Jarrah was bought by Jewish trusts from Arab landowners in the 1870s. The authenticity of these documents has been challenged by Palestinian claimants in Israeli courts. In 1956, the Jordanian government got involved to help the Palestinian refugees, in cooperation with the United Nations. 28 Palestinian refugee families were provided with tenancy rights in a compound on land that Jordan managed as custodian of enemy property, which generally happens during ancient times, where another country involves in between the enemy countries to resolve the after-war issues. However, in 1972, after the 6 Days War, the area fell under Israeli occupation, where they registered the properties under the Jewish trusts, which in turn demanded that the Palestinian tenants should pay the trust's rent afterwards. Israelis have the right to reclaim properties in East Jerusalem owned by Jews, before the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. But no similar law exists that would allow Palestinians to claim their lost property inside Israel during the hostilities. At the start of Ramadan in April 2021, Israeli police blocked off access to the Damascus Gate, where Muslim worshippers usually congregate during their holy month. In the wake of protests, Israel removed the barriers 2 weeks later on 15th April. The next day, tens of thousands of Palestinian worshippers were turned away from Al-Aqsa Mosque too. Here comes another historic conflict between these two countries. Al-Aqsa Mosque is considered to be the third holiest site in Islam. But the compound wall called Haram al-Sharif by Muslims is equally holy for Jews, who refer to it as the Temple Mount. Muslims believe that Prophet Muhammad, their last messenger, traveled from Mecca to Al-Aqsa first, during a holy night journey, and continued thereafter to heaven. However, the walled plateau also hosts the Temple Mount, which is one of the holiest places for Jews. They believe it was built during biblical times. The Romans destroyed it in 70 AD, leaving only its western part. The Jews revere this wall. Both Israelis and Muslims of Palestine and rest of the Arab region stake their claim on the walled plateau. It is one of the disputed points that have prevented a settlement between Israel and Palestine. Back then, the area where the mosque is located was under the control of Jordan, which was later occupied by Jews as we saw earlier. Since then these two-nation conflicts was never ended. Al-Aqsa has been a site of clashes for years, even after several mediation attempts have failed to find an amicable settlement between them. In 2000, Israeli forces stormed the mosque compound to suppress a Palestinian uprising. The month of Ramzan has historically seen an uptick in clashes in the area. Now again it has started on the first Friday of Ramadan, when Israel imposed a 10,000-person limit on prayers at the mosque. On the same day, a Jewish spiritual leader was beaten, which caused 2 days of protests. On the 22nd of April, the far-right Jewish supremacist group held a march through Jerusalem chanting, "Death to Arabs." On the 23rd of April, after fringe military groups fired 36 rockets at southern Israel, they launched missiles at Hamas, a Palestine Sunni Islamic organization. In the following days, a Palestinian boy and a 19-year-old Israeli settler were killed. On the 6th of May, incendiary balloon attacks launched from Palestine set off 6 fires. Ben-Gvir, a lawyer and a political leader in the Israel, visited shortly before the clashes began, where he said that the houses belonged to Jews, and told police to open fire on protesters. Israeli settlers had been seen in Sheikh Jarrah, the conflict area, openly carrying assault rifles and revolvers leading up to the clashes. A video was posted of him, in a joking exchange with the deputy mayor of Jerusalem Ara King, mocking a Palestinian resident shot by Israeli police during a protest. On the 7th of May, large numbers of police were deployed on the Temple Mount, as around 70,000 worshippers attended the final Friday prayers of Ramadan at Al-Aqsa Mosque. After the evening prayers, some Palestinian worshippers began throwing previously stockpiled rocks and other objects at Israeli police officers. Police officers fired stun grenades into the mosque compound. A mosque spokesman stated the clashes broke out after Israeli police attempted to evacuate the compound where many Palestinians sleep over in Ramadan, adding that the evacuation was intended to allow access to Israelis. More than 300 Palestinians were wounded. Palestinians threw rocks, firecrackers, and heavy objects, while Israeli police fired stun grenades, tear gas, and rubber bullets at worshippers. The storming came ahead of a Jerusalem Day Flag March, is an Israeli national holiday commemorating the reunification of Jerusalem, and the establishment of Israeli control over Palestine. At least 215 Palestinians were injured, 153 of whom were hospitalized. Militants in Gaza fired rockets into Israel the following night. More clashes occurred on the 8th of May, the date of the Islamic Holy Night, which is known as Night of Power, where Muslims believe that the holy book Quran's first verse was revealed to the world by their God. Palestinian crowds threw stones, lit fires, and chanted, "In spirit, and in blood, we will redeem Al-Aqsa," which the Times of Israel described as in support of Hamas, which is considered illegal. The Israel police, wearing riot gear, and some on horseback, used stun grenades and water cannons. At least 80 people were injured. On the 10th of May, a video showing a raging fire on the Al-Aqsa Mosque, caused by the conflagration of a tree near the Al-Aqsa Mosque, began to circulate on social media. Below in the Western Plaza, a packed group of Jewish Israelis chanted genocidal songs of vengeance. After days of conflicts, Hamas demanded Israel to remove its forces from Al-Aqsa Mosque by the 10th of May, 6 p.m. Minutes after the deadline passed, Hamas fired more than 150 rockets into Israel from Gaza. The Israel Defense Forces, which is known as IDF, said that 7 rockets were fired. An anti-tank missile was also fired at an Israeli civilian vehicle, injuring the driver. Israel launched airstrikes in the Gaza Strip on the same day. On May 11, the 13-story residential Hanadi Tower in Gaza collapsed after being hit by an Israeli airstrike. The tower housed a mix of residential apartments and commercial offices. IDF said the building contained offices used by Hamas, and said it gave advance warning to civilians in the building, and provided sufficient time for them to evacuate the site. Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad fired 137 rockets at Israel in 5 minutes. Hamas stated that they fired their largest ever barrage. In addition, an Israeli state-owned oil pipeline was hit by a rocket. From this day there has been some heavy firings between both the countries, which still continues at the making of this video. I hope this violence stops soon. I personally feel human lives are more important than religion. Humanity comes first before anything. All humans have rights to live in this world. Let all us pray our gods for peace in this world, especially when during these tough times of global pandemic. Hope you liked this video. If you like this video, please share it with your friends and family. Don't forget to subscribe this channel and hit the bell button in order to be notified as soon as I post a video.